Last night, the Seattle Seahawks were named NFL champions after beating the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara. And today, here on Steelers Talk, I'm going to tell you why that's great news for the Pittsburgh Steelers as they embark on the 2026 offseason. Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Get us going right now on today's video by clicking that thumbs up icon if you want the Pittsburgh Steelers to have a great offseason just like the Seattle Seahawks did in 2025. Without further ado, let's get into today's show. First thing we'll talk about on today's show is that the New England Patriots did not get their 7th Super Bowl championship. Right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers are tied atop the leaderboard in the National Football League for the most Super Bowl championships with 6. If the Patriots would have won last night, they would have gotten an NFL record 7th Lombardi trophy. Of course, with the Patriots losing to the Seahawks, that means that the Steelers are still tied for the top spot in the National Football League. But honestly, that's probably the least of my worries here on today's video. Let's talk about the real reasons why Steelers fans should be happy that the Patriots lost and the Seahawks won last night. We'll start with the fact that the Seattle Seahawks were able to escape NFL purgatory and were able to build a Super Bowl champion from a kind of middling franchise without having to completely blow it up and rebuild and stink for a couple of years in order to get to where they're at. You guys can take a look at the last 5 seasons and the results of the Seattle Seahawks franchise, and this was an organization that heading into this year was kind of seen as a team that was stuck in neutral or stuck in purgatory, very similar to how people view the Pittsburgh Steelers. They were winning 7, 9, 10 wins per season. They weren't winning in the playoffs for the last half decade. In fact, they missed the playoffs in the 2 previous seasons before lifting a Lombardi trophy this year. And all they had to do, guys, was, it wasn't full-scale changes, right? It was just a couple of tweaks, switching the quarterback out, Geno Smith for Sam Darnold, switching out the offensive coordinator for Ryan Grubb to Clint Kubiak, bringing in some pieces on defense, Nick Emenwari as their big nickel, and, getting rid of DK Metcalf, making Jackson Smith-Njigba their new number 1, and bringing in Cooper Kupp, making a couple of those tweaks, and all of a sudden, you're looking at a 14-3 ball club and a team that was the number 1 seed in the NFC and ends up winning it all this year with a quarterback in Sam Darnold that was acquired via free agency. They did not have to, bottom out and completely start over or blow it up. And I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers and this fan base here can kind of take that and say, you know what? The Pittsburgh Steelers are not that far away. This team has won 10 games in the last 3 seasons, and I still believe we're at a point with this roster that if you just make a couple of fruitful tweaks, kind of like the Seattle Seahawks did this past offseason, the Steelers could once again take that next step and get into Super Bowl contention for the first time in quite a while under new head coach Mike McCarthy. Now you guys can take a look at another reason why I think it's great news for the Steelers that the Seahawks won last night, which is that another defensive-led team ended up winning the Super Bowl. And of course, the Seattle Seahawks dark side defense was one of the best defenses really in NFL history, in my opinion. They were number 1 in scoring defense this year, and they were phenomenal all the way through the playoffs, including last night, completely shutting down Drake May and the Patriots offense. And guys, the last 3 Super Bowl winners, the Seattle Seahawks, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Kansas City Chiefs, were all defensive-led football teams. Now you might be saying, well, Jack, the Chiefs had Patrick Mahomes, but in their final Super Bowl run, it was really Steve Spagnuolo's defense that was the main engine for that group. And sure, it helps to have Patrick Mahomes in the fourth quarter, but you look at the offensive numbers for the Chiefs that season, they weren't that fantastic. It was really a defensive-led football team, and then for the last 2 years, the league's top defense has been the one that has been crowned Super Bowl champion. So certainly the old Adam, defense wins championships is certainly alive and well, even in the modern National Football League. And guys, the Pittsburgh Steelers do have the defensive talent on this team to really be a great group moving forward, especially now that you're switching up defensive philosophies. I think the old school approach of Mike Tomlin and Terrell Austin was really holding back this Steelers team. And despite, spending a ton of money on this group, investing a lot of high draft picks in this group as well, they were a good defense, but they never got to that great, elite, special kind of category that the Seattle Seahawks dark side defense and last year's Phillies defense were able to attain. And, I think that Pittsburgh's defensive line is chock chock full of talent. We got TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig. Derek Harmon is up and coming as a first-round draft pick heading into his second year. You still got Keanu Benton. You still have Cam Hayward if he decides to come back. Like, you've got a ton of defensive line talent. And how were the Seattle Seahawks able to completely dominate this season? They were able to get after the quarterback with just 4 rushers. The Steelers absolutely have the pieces in place to be able to do that heading into future seasons under new defensive coordinator Patrick Graham. And then, it's not just the defensive line, guys. You got a lot of talent on the second and third levels of the defense as well. I'm hoping Peyton Wilson can take the next step as a player under Patrick Graham. Also, you got Joey Porter Jr., who looks like a legit number 1 lockdown corner. You got Deshaun Elliott, who we all know is an awesome player. You still have Jalen Ramsey, who I believe is going to play really well next year as a big nickel in this Patrick Graham defense. And, hopefully PG is going to be able to turn this group from good under the Mike Tomlin, Terrell Austin kind of old school, kind of predictable type of scheme to great in this kind of multiple Belichickian style defense that I expect Patrick Graham to implement here in Pittsburgh. We certainly have the talent to be a special group on the defensive side of the ball here in Pittsburgh, and hopefully Patrick Graham is the guy that's capable of turning this thing around and bringing elite special defensive football back to the Steel City. So true or false? Let me know down there in the comment section. The Steelers will have a top 5 defense next season. Give me a T if you think that statement is true, or type F if you think that statement is false. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Harry's. And while I tell you about Harry's today, give me a T for true or F for false. And guys, before I switched to Harry's, I was just a high school and college kid with absolutely no money, so I couldn't afford the more premium men's grooming products, but I was tired of bargain shopping, and those razors always irritated and even cut my skin. That's where Harry's came in, and I haven't looked back since. Harry's newest product, Harry's Plus, is their most advanced razor ever, and it's still cheaper than Gillette Fusion 5. Harry's Plus has an advanced pivoting system to reach every corner of your face, refined blade tech for a closer, smoother shave, and a weighted metal handle, which is Harry's heaviest handle ever for added comfort and control. But the best part about Harry's Plus is how affordable it is. Harry's owns their own world-class blade factory in Germany, which means no outsourcing and no middlemen to drive up their prices. Because Harry's controls the entire process from steel to shelf, they can keep costs low and pass the savings on to you without sacrificing quality. And if you don't love your shave with Harry's, they're going to make it right with you, no questions asked. Their risk-free trial means there's zero downside to giving them a shot. And just to show you guys I actually use and love Harry's products, I brought my Harry's Plus razor with me here today. And what I love about Harry's Plus, guys, is you got that weighted metal handle, which gives you that extra heft in your hand, and it just gives you that extra level of comfort and control. And with all Harry's products, guys, you get a barbershop quality shave without having to break the bank. So for a limited time only, our listeners can get the Harry's Plus trial set for only $10 at harrys.com/chat. This set includes the all-new Harry's Plus razor, one refined 5-blade cartridge, a 2-ounce foaming shave gel, and a travel cover to protect your blades on the go. Just head on over to harrys.com/chat to claim this offer, and after your purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you, and a big thank you to Harry's for sponsoring today's edition of Steelers Talk. Some more great news coming out of the Seattle Seahawks winning the Super Bowl this year is that it's another team with a non-top 8 quarterback winning the Super Bowl here, in Sam Darnold being this year's Super Bowl champion at the signal caller position. And guys, this is 2 years in a row here where I do not consider Sam Darnold and Jalen Hurts elite level passers. I think that Darnold is very good, probably in the top 10 at this point after winning the Super Bowl this year. And then Jalen Hurts I would have considered to be top 10 last year, probably not heading into 2026. But these are two guys that are good starting quarterbacks, but they are not elite superstar caliber guys like Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. In fact, Lamar and Josh Allen have never won a Super Bowl. So, kind of the modern meta that we're seeing in the National Football League is very good starting quarterback play, but you have to have a team around your quarterback in order to win nowadays, especially having a great defense. And I've been saying on this show for the last couple of weeks, guys, that I believe Aaron Rodgers is more than capable of being that caliber of good starting quarterback for this team moving forward. forward, I mean, he still has the arm strength. He still has the all-time level football IQ. I thought he elevated the Steelers offense in 2025, a group that had maybe the worst, if not a bottom three, wide receiver group in the league. And despite that, this team was able to get above league average in scoring offense and around league average in many of the team offensive categories, EPA per play, success rate, etc. And I think if you can get him a legitimate wide receiver trio and add a couple pieces to that wide receiver room that aren't Calvin Austin III, Roman Wilson, Adam Thielen, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, I think that we could be looking at a legitimate offense here in Pittsburgh. And then if Patrick Graham can turn this defense from good to great, like I think that he's capable of, I think we could be looking at a super complete football team here in Pittsburgh, and a team that's capable of taking that next step from a team that's competing for a playoff spot like we've seen here in Pittsburgh over the last several years to a team competing for a Super Bowl, a similar jump to what the Seattle Seahawks were able to do this year. And I also think a key lesson at the quarterback position the Steelers can take from is from Minnesota, because what did Minnesota say? Oh, we're done with the veteran option. We want to go with the younger guy, and we're going to try and compete for a Super Bowl with J.J. McCarthy. How'd that work out for them, right? They had a team that you could argue was ready to compete for a Super Bowl, but you had a terrible bottom three starting quarterback that you took a risk on that wasn't proven and was in his first year playing in the National Football League, and you only end up with 8 wins. And then, the guy that ends up leaving your organization, Sam Darnold, goes somewhere else and wins a freaking Super Bowl. Now, that doesn't guarantee that if the Steelers keep their starting quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, that they'll win a Super Bowl. But you definitely run the risk of, say, if you go with Will Howard, or if you draft a quarterback and start him day one, you run the risk of this Steelers team being good enough to really go on a run and compete come January, but the quarterback play is holding the team back. And as far as I'm concerned, guys, that is the worst case scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into the 2026 season. But you might be saying, but Jack, we need to suck. We need to rebuild. We need to start over, and we need to trade away all of our good veteran pieces so that we can get a top 10 pick. That's the only way to get a long-term franchise quarterback. But did you guys know, since the turn of the century, since 2000, there's only 2 examples of a team drafting a QB in the top 10 without trading up for that QB and winning a Super Bowl with the quarterback that they take in the top 10. There's only 2 examples of this happening over this century, and they're both with the last name Manning. All right, Eli Manning and Peyton Manning are the only 2 guys that have been taken by their respective teams in the top 10 without those teams trading up for them, and they end up winning a Super Bowl. And I think it's only happened in 3 years out of the last 27 Super Bowls where, the Super Bowl champion quarterback was taken inside the top 10. So I keep hearing the Steelers need to suck. The Steelers need to suck. We have to rebuild and get our quarterback. But it's like, I think that we've seen that there are a number of different ways to get your franchise quarterback that don't include just completely blowing it up and turning into a terrible football team in order to get your QB. I mean, Sam Darnold is the latest example of this, where he was a free agent this year, guys. Like, he was acquired in free agency this year, and now he is their long-term franchise quarterback. And obviously, it came with a little bit of a risk. There's a lot of people talking about Sam Darnold can't handle the big stage, can't handle pressure. If you take him out of Kevin O'Connell's offense, he's not going to be as good. Well, I mean, this year he was just as good, led him to the same amount of wins. Was the number 1 seed in the NFC this year. He's the NFL's most winningest quarterback the last 2 seasons, and now he's a Super Bowl champion. So obviously, it's not as much of a quote-unquote sure thing to get a franchise quarterback outside of the top 10, but it does happen. In fact, a majority of Super Bowls are won with quarterbacks that are drafted outside of the top 10 or acquired in other means, via trade, via free agency, sometimes on day 2 or day 3 draft picks. So my message to you guys when it comes to finding a long-term option at quarterback is to be patient. All right, our next dude at the quarterback position is coming soon, whether that comes via free agency or via trade, whether it comes via Will Howard or somebody else that they draft. I do have a lot of confidence in Mike McCarthy to develop young quarterback talent, and I do believe over the next 2 or 3 years we will find our next guy to be the next franchise quarterback. And no, we do not have to bottom out to find that QB. Then the final bit of great news here after the Seattle Seahawks won the Super Bowl last night is that the AFC is clearly wide open heading into the 2026 season. Now, there's a lot of really good quarterback talent in the AFC, including in New England England with Drake May, but I think it's pretty clear that New England just wasn't ready for that big stage last night, and I think that, they certainly had one of the easier roads to a Super Bowl appearance in NFL history. They had one of the, easiest schedules. They were a last-place team last year, so they had a beneficial schedule, and then, they hit a lot of very beneficial, teams along the way in their playoff journey. C.J. Stroud was terrible. Then, of course, you get to, or you get to the Denver Broncos in the AFC Championship game with Jarrett frickin' Stidham. It's not like Drake May was good really at all during this playoff run, and they were just able to kind of skate by because of the ease of their schedule. And then they ran into a legitimately great football team in the Seattle Seahawks, and they were just clearly not ready for that big stage. But man, I'm telling you, I know that you've got the Chiefs in this conference. You've got the Ravens with the new head coach. The Patriots aren't going anywhere. Neither of the Broncos. But if the Pittsburgh Steelers have a strong offseason, guys, you really, truly never know. I mean, you look at how people felt about the Seattle Seahawks at this time last year. Nobody thought that they were going to be hoisting a Lombardi trophy at the end of the 2025 NFL season. But here they are. They are Super Bowl champions, and all they had to do is just make a few kind of, I'm not going to say minor, but just a few tweaks to their roster, to their coaching staff, especially on the offensive side of the ball, and then poof, they're one of the best offenses in the National Football League, one of the most complete teams in the National Football League, and now they're Super Bowl champions. If the Steelers make a similar kind of effort this offseason, there's no reason why the black and gold can't put themselves in a similar situation 1 year from today. Now, you guys make the call for me down there in the comment section. What should the Steelers do this offseason? Are you somebody that thinks they should continue to try and compete? It's very clear that this is the road the Steelers are going to go down based on the way Art Rooney II has talked, and Omar Khan and Mike Tomlin. They're clearly going to try and win now. If you think that's the right call, give me a C for compete. Or if you think they should just completely rebuild, blow this thing up and start over, type R if you would want to rebuild. For me personally, I think that this team is still built to compete, and I think we're just a few tweaks away from taking that next step from a team that is competing for playoff spots to a team that's competing for Super Bowls. Thank you guys so much for joining me here today. Later today, Ponzi and I will be going live for our first Steelers Talk live show of the week. We'll be going live at around 6 p.m. Eastern time later this evening, so make sure you guys join us for that. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Till next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.